Today, as you all know, we have an extremely pressing topic that's in the interest and attention of every Indian, Union Budget 21-22. And our expert panelists would try and decode what it holds for the rightly defined as the backbone of the country, MSMEs in India. Good morning and welcome to another CPO Innovation live series brought to you by HSBC. My name is Rizum Rajan and I'm super excited to welcome you today. The powerful promise of Made in India vaccine has been delivered, affirming our Prime Minister's vision of and belief in an Atmanirbhar Bharat. This belief is rooted in the unique strengths that the country possesses, being mindful that the budget is but one milestone in our country's journey. The French poet and novelist Victor Hugo had said, "Nothing else in the world, not all the armies are as powerful as an idea whose time has come." The pandemic did slow down our economic momentum, but it's a certainty that India will be among the top 3 economies of the world by the end of the decade that started with a major destruction. MSMEs are the bedrock of this vision, and that inherently demands that we make vocal for local the cornerstones of the journey ahead. The budget this year ensures this with an utmost double increase in allocation for MSMEs, as you all are aware. The pandemic spared almost no one on this planet, and it is a matter of great pride that our MSMEs are fighting hard, and I'm sure we'll manage the outbreak very well. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman began her Union Budget 21 speech at 11 a.m. Monday amid heckling by parliamentarians. Only 3 times has the budget followed a contraction in the economy. This time, unlike before, the situation is due to a global pandemic. Budget 21 provides every opportunity for the economy to capture the pace and grow sustainably, she began. Keeping in line with the government's aim to focus on intensive structural reform and inclusive growth, the finance minister unveiled a resilience in face of once-in-a-century crisis budgetary measures woven around the themes of aspirational India, economic development, and caring society. The budget this year has been primarily built on 6 pillars, as you all know: health and well-being, physical, financial capital and infrastructure, inclusive development for aspirational India again, human capital, innovation and R&D, and minimum governance and maximum governance. 21-22 reflects firm commitment of the government to boost economic growth by investing a lot in infrastructure development, which means a lot of MSMEs have some good task in hand. There are almost 60 categories into the infrastructure and housing development that gets into this category. In today's panel discussion, we have the privilege to have with us Anand Agarwal, CFO V-Mart. Anand is a CA and CS with 24 plus years of management experience with retail, education, sporting goods, and technology companies. Professionally qualified in finance, his heart and interest lies in using technology as a business tool, which he has been pursuing throughout his career. Anand, which is a good news, also manages V-Mart's online business vertical. Welcome, Anand.
Thank you, Raju.
Also joining us, we have Milan Thakkar, CEO of Wallplast. Milan, having started his career early in the corporate world, the highlight is being a part of the leadership team to build radio taxi brand Meru for a decade. Then he went on to establish a management consulting firm as an entrepreneur, advising a lot of SMEs on growth strategies before joining Wallplast. Milan confesses to having learned as much, if not more, about business management since having moved into his role that's currently at Wallplast. Welcome, Milan.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Raju.
Today again, we are also joined by Mayur Patni, Head Retail Business Banking with HSBC India. Mayur set up HSBC's first branch in Vadodara and achieved break-even record time of doing it under 18 months. He's worked in the States for 3 years managing HSBC's NRI business there. He had also worked in the broking entity HSBC Invest Direct and managed business development in sales and distribution. Milan is currently managing the retail business banking in India for HSBC and banking for small and micro businesses. So it's a very fine expert to hear from today. Welcome, Mayur.
Thank you. Thanks, Raju.
Alongside, we also have the privilege to have Ravi Nandan Sinha, board member and director, MSME Business Forum India. He has about 25 plus years of experience. He's been the ex-associate director at Tata Group, ex-vice president, Kotak Life, head Gujarat. He's been instrumental in promoting Indian MSMEs competency across Europe and US and South America, and has initiated a lot of talks with MSMEs wanting to invest in India. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you, Rizum, and namaskar to everybody from my side.
Namaste. So thank you so much, Mayur, Anand, Ravi, and Milan. We have a packed agenda today to cover as we will be zooming into the Union Budget of India 21-22 with a view to solely decode its meaning for the MSMEs that are struggling today. So, Ravi, as doubled from what was proposed in the previous budget for MSMEs, the highlight for the MSME sector this year is the increased allocation that's almost doubled. The budget has earmarked an allocation of 15,700 crore for the MSME enterprises. What do you feel? How have you received it? Your opening comments, please.
In getting this very important decoding discussions to be brought so that the actual information reaches down. It is very important that we understand what exactly is this. I call it, or I think everybody is now starting to call it as an Atmanirbhar budget, which it is. Couple of points before I come into this budget. Couple of points that we must understand is this budget has actually attended very many key India's objectives, and those objectives are directly related to Indian MSMEs. You cannot keep on announcing the budgets, allocating funds without keeping the objectives, which was always earmarked. Number one objective, 2014, Make in India, where our manufacturing competencies have to be taken to the next levels. So we are continuously following that objective. Number two, Digital India. We are continuously working on those objectives, on those visions. All these are included in this budget, in this Atmanirbhar budget, which has been announced. Number three, Swachh Bharat. Again, that objective, that mission is continuously growing. The beauty is we have not deviated from our aim. We have never deviated from focusing on Indian MSME sector. And also, we are taking forward on what we want to build an MSME into. We all know MSME contributes this much to the GDP, MSME contributes this much to this. How are we contributing to the MSMEs? We have 15,700 crores, as everybody said. Yes, this is double what it will be, what it was last year, what it is this year. But you think of it where these funds will be going. Parity of this is being considered under the ECLG scheme. So that ECLG scheme, which came during pandemic, the government still wants to push money into that. Look at the next segment, brick and mortar. The funds is coming into that industry because that industry is just not adapting into technology. They are still very manual in nature. Look at the other allocation. I'm talking of the broad perspective before going into the minor one. I am sure Anandji will totally agree, and he will also appreciate on this, being a chartered accountant. NCLT, the framework, the government says we will attend to it. E-courts, marvelous initiative. The framework of insolvency, again a very good initiative. When was the last time, ladies and gentlemen, whoever we were listening, were we very much concerned about the recycling industry? This time, have you seen the growth of steel, the prices of steel from November to December? It's grown almost 20+%. Now, this is where the government intervention came in. There will be relaxation in terms of their duty. Now, when I talk about duty, I'm sure Milan, Mayur, Anand, and everybody will agree. The new concept of Turant custom, again, relating this to digital India, freedom of paperwork is coming in, and reduced duty. Now, all these put together is making the MSMEs. I'm not coming on to the larger part of it, of the funds allocated into the infra, that we will come into separate part. But I'm talking of the broad overview. All of there is a place which is our circle of influence, where we needed government or the policymakers to think about it. If I see from that perspective, I find it a very, very bullish budget that has come, and it is a very friendly budget. Milanji will also agree, and Mayurji will also agree that the markets has welcomed this budget very nicely. We had 1,000+ points coming up, and that's where the country is showing its happiness. So I think, to start with, we have a very positive start to 2021.
Milan, opening comments from you, please.
Okay, very exciting budget for us. I think the sector needed a lot of thrust in terms of relaxation on the affordable homes, which is, I think it's taken care of. In the coming year, the dream of realizing the affordable housing till 2022 will somewhere get a thrust by this move from the government. Other very interesting, as Ravi Saab mentioned, the double allocation to the MSME sector, I think, is the most exciting, 15,700 crores. However, having said that, 63 million MSMEs, I think we further need a plan to decode that, and it's coming our way. Third exciting area is the interest subvention, which I think is a very, very intriguing part of the home industry. I'm relating all this to the infrastructure thrust, where huge manpower is required, and today engaging the workforce for coming back to the economy is the most important, which this budget is somewhere addressed. And I'm sure exciting times are ahead of reviving the economy, coming back, reviving from the global pandemic. India is going to be the first mover in terms of revival, and the way we are going to look forward and be a strong economy in the next coming years. That's a few comments, man. Thank you.
Mayur, your opening comments, please.
Yeah. So I echo Ravi and Milan's sort of sentiments on this. Clearly an extremely strong forward-looking budget with a lot of focus on improving physical, digital, and financial infrastructure, and has several steps to boost capital expenditure, which and drive public consumption. Everybody who's learned economics knows that investments in infrastructure, and in fact there are lots more in to boost textiles, healthcare, automobiles, etc., which are there in the budget, always has a multiplier effect on the economy in terms of job creation and economic activity. And I think that's what has been targeted. So at an overall level, that's the narrative for the budget from my personal side. Two key things that on the banking side I'll specifically highlight. One is, of course, the whole piece around the bad banks. I think that's something that we were looking forward to for quite a while, and that's been announced. So that's one big positive. The other bit is, I think, the proposed privatization that has been announced for IDBI and two other banks, with a long-term view to keep only maybe 3 to 4 public sector banks. The whole intention that has been articulated is minimum government, maximum governance. And I think that bodes very well for this sector.
Anand, opening comments from you, please.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't agree more with all the participants. I think this budget is unique in the sense that without offering too much and not giving anything, it gives a lot, and that itself is such a welcome news given the context of past many budgets where we have all been wary of new announcements, new complications, new compliances, and new restrictions, which have really made us think and discuss a lot more. Just by not announcing any significant changes, at least in the taxation structures, the government has signaled a very stable policy, which in more ways than one brings together a very harmonized long range objective, which now looks achievable. I think the budget has not only delivered on key expectations, but also positively surprised on multiple fronts. By not introducing any new taxes or the expected COVID tax or COVID surcharges, it has signaled a very stable tax regime, which has been at a very strong variance from the past practices from many budgets announced in the past. On a lighter side, this budget is one of the first one in my memory which has even spared cigarettes from any new tax. There is a very strong focus on infrastructure, a very strong focus on health, and extreme focus, I would say, on Make in India, the Atmanirbhar Bharat, which is nothing but a reflection and opportunity for the MSMED sector to gain significant foothold and play the lead role in not only their but also the country's growth. The increase in custom duties, setup of textile parks, allowing 1% companies, decriminalization of LLPs, increase in tax audit thresholds, larger allocation to the MSMED sector, all are very, very serious initiatives towards the intent of the government to seriously give a lot of development opportunities for this sector. I have no doubt in my mind that in the last many decades, this is one budget where the entire focus of the government has been towards making sure that the smaller businessmen are benefited in more ways than one. In fact, if you look at the overall outlay, there has been reduction in the defense budget. There has been no major announcement in the large manufacturing sector. There has been no large-scale announcement of any initiative which would or could have benefited, let's say, exports, or typically the traditional budgets which sort of revolved around giving swaps to the large corporates or to the large industrial houses and to announce small tax tweaks. But I think this budget has focused on a very clear long-term objective of growth through infra and Make in India, which will create more employment opportunities, generate consumption, and make the MSMED sector the poster face of growth for India. From a finance perspective, if I were to look at this, typically a budgeting exercise is a one-year exercise. You have annual plans, you have 3-year plans, and you have long-range plan. I think through this one-year budget exercise that the government has been able to achieve is nothing short of a long-range plan, objective setting, and a very objective and a strategic thought, which makes us focus towards Make in India, which is very largely achievable only through if the MSMED sector takes the hint and starts to leverage on some of these opportunities.
Okay. Now, see, the near double increase in the allocation to the Ministry of MSME is clearly laudable, and it's very well welcomed. However, and Ravi, you've mentioned this point, the lion's share is likely to be taken away for the corpus of the credit guarantee company, backstopping the ECLGS scheme. In that case, would you feel the allocation for the existing successful schemes of the ministry, like credit link subsidy or cluster development program, do you think these schemes could stagnate or even be curtailed? Ravi, what's your view?
Yes. Am I audible, Ruzum?
Yes.
Let us not have this kind of a thought process that the government is ever going to curtail on any of the existing schemes that is in the already existing now. It was the government of India which brought in one of the best schemes. I think Mayur will agree with CGT MSE. A trust was formed to take guarantee, and you could get a loan now without collaterals. Please do not think that any of the existing schemes is going to be cut down or brought back. I would just like to emphasize here some of the visions that the government always feels, and this will be a very good statistics for all our listeners. If you see the Taiwan model, the country Taiwan model, it's a growing country, it's a developed country, and the maximum benefit that that country gains is only out of MSMEs. They don't have any large corporates. The country emphasize a lot upbringing the MSMEs. Any developed country you see, any developed country, the country does not grow if the big, large corporate grows. It grows when the MSME grows. Look at Korea, look at Japan. I would give personally, because India actually is a lot in Taiwan. What are we doing through this budget or through a vision that I have almost emphasized? We push to make in India manufacturing global champions. We are focusing that. How do you do that? You do that by giving many supports, schemes. Ruzum, you remember last time we were talking, why do you think the definition of Make in India was changed? It was changed because MSMEs were fearing that if they would enhance their capability or get in more of their investments into plant and machinery, that certificate of MSME will be lost. Here is the government with the objective of MSME, enhance the definition so that you could invest in plant and machinery, you could deal in global competitive market, you could compete and you could win in global competitive market. So under no circumstances, any of these schemes which is existing will have lower clawbacks. However, Honorable Finance Minister categorically said there will be emphasis of some part of the money, extra money going into ECLG scheme, because that was a very good takeaway. That was a very good support that was given during pre-COVID times.
Nah, I believe that. And we all, I'm sure, would find this a very optimistic budget this time. Anand, my question to you, and you've mentioned this before, the budget 21 beginning April made no changes in personal or corporate tax rates, but it has raised custom duties on certain auto parts, mobile phone components, and solar panels, and etc. This is to provide impetus to domestic manufacturing. So how do you see this move? And more importantly, how should MSMEs see this initiative?
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, Rajan. Sometimes no change is a good change. And I think in my personal view, what the government has done by not really making any changes in the taxation structure, which has been the norm for last so many budgets, I think they have signaled a regime of stability and a focus on growth, focus on development, focus on manufacturing, and as you rightly said, focus on Make in India. I couldn't agree with Ravi in what he was mentioning in his last remarks around Taiwan. I think the entire growth impetus which this budget provides through the focus on Make in India and in derivative through the development of the MSMED sector is very hard to miss. If you look at the increase in the custom duty in products like mobile phones, chips, solar panels, etc., it's a very strong signal for the local manufacturing. And I would say in particular, the MSMED sectors to get their act together and increase their presence in this very strong growth-oriented sector. Solar is the the in thing not only in India. It has been the in thing for the last many years. But I think between China and Germany, that has been one sector which has the panel business has largely been monopolized by these two countries. There is a very strong opportunity for our MSMED sector to set up plants, set up businesses around this. And the increase in custom duty in this area could not have come at a better time. Like any strategy, there can always be pros and cons, and there can always be things which can be done in a different way. I sincerely don't feel that I would want to propose a different solution for achieving the same objective, as long as the objective is getting achieved. in that sense, and my thought, and as far as I can see, what the government is trying to achieve is to promote local manufacturing and to make in India. And obviously, that can only happen if the MSMEs can participate in a more meaningful way. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind that the friends who are listening to this are able to visualize the intent of the government, and we can see a lot of growth together. The increase in the custom duty, on the other hand, on some of the areas, is very, very clear signal that the government has not minced any words, not only in this budget but also in the last many years, about the Atmanirbhar Bharat program. And the only way to go from here is to increase local production, and which can happen only if the MSMEs can participate in a much more meaningful way. Just in this perspective, I would want to share a very small data point. There was a very recent study done by a very large US investment bank, and they were able to visualize and analyze what has been the shift in the production out of China in the last 3-4 months. And there's been almost like 75 companies, very large companies, which have shifted manufacturing out of China into countries like Taiwan, into Philippines, into India, into many other countries. But the very perceptible shift is apparel is coming to Philippines and to Vietnam. Mobile phones are coming into India. Electronics are getting into Japan, and so on and so forth. But the important point to note here is not the percentage or the companies which are shifting the production, but it is just the beginning. And if we can get our own act together, I think we can definitely, get a lot more business in the months and years to come.
Milan, your views, please.
I think a very interesting move by the government. I think today, given that we are a 100% Atmanirbhar Bharat enterprise, we have more than 20 manufacturing units completely based out of India, and we are the largest exporter of ball putty. So I think for us, it's a welcome change in terms of, and as Anand mentioned, that it's as simple and simplified by the government. Today, with these moves, India can definitely get an edge, and 75 companies is just the beginning. You will see India being the center of a preferred manufacturing hub in the near future, not very far. Few more moves where the government needs to open a single window of increasing the way we look at simplifying and doing ease of business. So this government is working towards ease of business, a one-person company, other moves which are practically helping everybody make it very easy to do business in this country. So I think that's the way forward, and it's a welcome change. And further anti-dumping duties also you will see them in course of time. Thank you.
Okay. Anand, viewers would want to know the top schemes launched for the MSME sector, and they've been reading a lot. But according to you, what do you think is the most promising for the MSME sector that can instill MSMEs' confidence? And what's one thing that you see has been missed? Both sides. You're on mute. See, the mute and unmute game is something that we need to become experts at. Over the last 1 year, this is something I've seen. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, Rajiv. So to specifically answer your question, I think apart from one very specific reference about the doubling of the allocation towards the MSME sector, the budget typically does not make a very specific reference in particular around the benefits which will be available. But I think if I read through the text and the budget speech, the fine points, I think there are a lot of small things hidden, which will benefit and which will, impact the, the MSME sector very, very positively. Now, if you look at, I'll just take a couple of examples. The biggest spend in the entire budget is around a massive increase in the infra spending. Now, Obviously, it is going to generate employment. It is going to create a lot of opportunity around, road work, construction work, and all of this is the bedrock of largely the MSME sector. If I look at the changes, Milind was talking about the change in the definition of these small companies. There is a huge impact to more than 2 lakh companies which are going to get benefit out of that. If I look at the changes or the tweaks in the custom duty, there is increase in custom duty on certain products, which is going to, incentivize Indian companies and especially the smaller companies to promote local manufacturing. And on the other side, there is also a reduction in custom duty of some raw materials used for manufacturing, like iron ore and some other stuff. But on the other side, if I look at the macro environment on the environment and how is the investment climate going to change, there are many more far-reaching implications and far-reaching changes which have been announced. Like, for instance, merging of the SEBI Securities Act and the Depositories Act. It will definitely make access to fundraising much easier by some of these smaller companies. The simplification of the the one-person company formation, allowing NRIs to come in and invest in one-person companies in India, increase in the turnover limit for tax audits. I think these are all very small but very long and big changes which are going to impact the kind of compliances and the burden which were otherwise there on this on the smaller businesses, which is now going to become much easier. Last but not the least, I think also limiting of the tax scrutiny time period to 3 years, and also the development of a corporate debt market is going to significantly aid access to cheaper funds in the times to come.
Ravi, your views, please. You're on mute again.
Okay, thank you. Let us not focus on a couple of points that has to be singled out as what is the major takeaway or this. Rather, I would like to make our audience and my learned panelist revisit what was mentioned in the speech or in the remarks by Honorable Finance Minister Sitharaman, Mr. Sitharaman ji, and let us see the positives that is going to come out of it. Now, it said 7 mega textile parks will be created. Now, I am again saying here, ladies and gentlemen, listening on this is a very big move. It is after a very long time that we have again thought of reviving the textile industry. I see it as a very positive point. The way I said, the recycling industry, where the duties for alloy, non-alloy, ferrous, non-ferrous has been reduced. Now, this is where the government comes in saying, we care for you. Number one point. Number two, I'm reading out this, and this is very interesting. And this is direct from the speech. It says, Metro Light and Metro New technologies to provide metro rail systems in tier 2 cities. Have we not missed out this point? The government vision of taking infra development into tier 2 cities. What Honorable Prime Minister said from the Lal Killa on 15th of August, that we must now focus on tier 2. Here there is a plan coming in for metro city enhancement. Now, what was the major pain points of MSMEs? The major pain points of MSMEs was the payments or the NCLT issue. They are again revisiting that and again reforming that. There is a figure which has come from the government of India, and I would like to highlight this figure again. I've asked my team to give this to me. There was this scheme launched by government of India, Vivad se Vishwas scheme. It said that over 1 lakh taxpayer had settled their disputes. Now, we see this from a bigger perspective. We are focusing on certain policy points. We are focusing on infra. We are focusing on industries which was not touched for many years. Textile, recycling industry. We are touching tier 2, tier 3 cities. As far as our working environment is concerned, we are making ease of governance, as we always say, ease of governance easy. Vivad se Vishwas. Here is an example of Vivad se Vishwas. Ladies and gentlemen, go back. Would love to assist. Government is planning to start Turant customs for people. Ease when the customs formality, the custom formality which is manual in nature and it is very, very tedious, ease that off. Now, all these are takeaways other than the major takeaways of investments into wellness, investments into agri sector. I've not even touched because it's a whole chapter to be discussed. It can take another couple of hours. These are minor points that I'm highlighting, which should not get missed out with the bigger ones. I feel overall it is the best that you could get at this point of time.
Okay. Mayur, what do you feel about the overall allocation?
Yeah, so Razum, clearly the overall allocation to the MSME sector, as we have discussed, has been doubled, and that is a big positive. As Ravi had mentioned earlier, there is a percentage of this which will be going towards the ECLGS scheme, which again, I think the ECLGS scheme has been a very, very welcome move, which was initiated earlier in 2020. It has helped a lot of the MSMEs to revive using that scheme, and that will continue till the end of March. So that's quite significant. The one thing I do want to also, and which has been a welcome move that I want to add on to, is the whole concept of the bad bank. Now, one key challenge which has been there for the regulators has been to encourage lending, and especially to allay the fears in the wake of rising NPAs. So how do you get the banks and the lenders to lend more in this kind of an environment? And I think the concept of the bad bank was being discussed for quite some time, and I think it's a step in the right direction, because what this allows us to do is faster resolution of recoveries of debt, NPAs, etc., because it will now be managed by one specific entity. It allows the management bandwidth in banks and lending institutions to focus on being able to lend to the productive sectors of the economy rather than being worried about how to solve the recovery problem. So I think that should help. I think I read somewhere, and it was a very good anecdote, which so the concept of the bad bank is that the NPAs will be hived off into an asset reconstruction company, right? Now the way the asset reconstruction company in turn will find investors, alternative investment funds, and other investors who will invest into or buy some of these NPAs and therefore resolve them. Now, the example or the analogy which I read somewhere, which was very interesting, and I'd like to share, is that this whole piece is, if you relate it to COVID, the ARC, the asset reconstruction company, is like a huge quarantine center where you're putting the NPAs, the patients. The treatment is the increased risk appetite and finding debt funds and other investors who will invest in these NPAs. And the long-term solution or the vaccine will be better credit norms, better credit underwriting, better training on that, and better oversight on these. So I just wanted to touch upon this piece as well, and I think it's a welcome move by the government. Back to you, Razu.
No, very well explained. Milan, my question is to you. Can you help our viewers understand by explaining the most important areas of opportunities that you think the budget has really opened altogether for MSMEs, who are very optimistic and looking to make the best of the time to come, especially after the pandemic?
I think just my response to the viewers would be at this is a great time to be in this wonderful country. Given the entire transition of manufacturing, as Anand mentioned, today, if you want to set up a manufacturing unit in our country, one-person company, the kind of man force which is skilled workforce, the kind of schemes which are coming, entrepreneurship and skill development schemes, the way we are, actually upskilling our talent, this is going to go a long way in terms of upskilling them for, vocal for global, creating global benchmarks in terms of what we want to create for the global community. The products currently, India being a self-centered country, the population of ours, if I can produce, we have fortunately a self-consuming economy. One, and two is I'm also upskilling my talent workforce for benchmarking global practices. So we are getting ready for Atmanirbhar Bharat. We are on our way to become a self-sustaining and a global economy, and a very, very powerful economy in course of time. So Razu, my input would be it's a great time to be here, and it's a great budget. It's a great beginning for anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur. Specifically join the MSME for workforce, and great times ahead. That's my input.
Okay, Anand, I'd want to understand from you. We're talking about the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and a major percentage of Indians, and I'm talking about the MSMEs, they are doubting in such a bold budget, right? So I'd want to understand from you, what's that one advice that you give to people, to the CEOs and owners of various companies across sectors, is to have confidence in the budget and to really trust on Indian announcements and what the government has joined hands with various sectors to really initiate the development. What would be your advice for the MSMEs in terms of those trust factors and confidence?
I think it's a very interesting question, but I think the question is more to oneself than to the government or to ask anybody. I think it's a question of trust. It's a question of what do I trust more? I trust myself more. I trust the government more. I trust my consumers more.
I believe is lacking. Because we need to really put trust in ourselves that we can do it. The way we have responded to countries like China or to anything, it's the opportunity that we need to seize. So what's your advice?
So I think my biggest advice will be that we should start investing. The macroeconomics is right. Government is pushing for Make in India. There will be more incentives for companies who can excel in local manufacturing. Pandemic or no pandemic, I think the fundamentals of the country have not changed. We are still 1.3 billion population. We will eat, we will consume. We will not only survive, but we will grow. I think if we can use technology, we can start investing, we can get online, we should imbibe technology as much as we can in our businesses. I think budgets will come and go, but we just need to keep our trust, and we need to keep investing in this new greenfield environment that the government has so rightly provided. The ball is really now in our court to maximize the opportunity and not really to question what has the government done for us, but to question what can we do for ourselves to grow and to thrive in this promising environment.
Okay, Ravi, I'd want to tweak this a bit for you. See, the budget is focused on the development agenda immensely, keeping diverse interests on the nation. The six-part budget has stressed significantly on self-reliance by boosting infrastructure and domestic trade. So what would you advise the MSMEs as they eye on a V-shaped recovery and the bounce back? And what would be the key trends that you want them to keep a watch on, given the backdrop of a once-in-a-century pandemic and a just release like never before budget?
My first and very important, and I would say with emphasis, I would like to say is read what has been announced. MSMEs, please read what has been announced and follow it. I'll give you a very small example. 13th of May, we all started talking about vocal for local. Everybody knows vocal for local, right? May I know from all the esteemed audience, what have you done to get benefit out of vocal for local? The first thing that you have to do is you have to start participating in government e-marketplace. Have you started enrolling yourself in GEM? No. Have you started thinking that there is a platform where government is buying a lot from from local people, from local entrepreneurs? You have not participated. Maybe still the perception of tender is still hitting you. What I'm trying to say is all these prejudice has now to be kept aside. It is an open and transparent system where government is doing procurement. This will benefit MSMEs. But you are still apprehensive of coming forward and participating in. Whose fault is that? I see it as an opportunity not taken. Right? I'll give you second example. Milan, I think, touched upon this point when in this budget they have said they will be promoting one-person company. That means if you are a startup, if you are an entrepreneur, you need a partner, you want to start something of your own, the government is with you, the policy makers are with you, but you need to start somewhere. Let me make this very big announcement on this platform today, Zoom. Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday I had a very big meeting with a delegation which had come from Europe, which wants to set up an industrial corridor in India. What does this mean? They are eyeing India. They are eyeing India to see as a market where they will grow. They can spend. We are still apprehensive. We are still questioning the opportunities that we have without participating. And without saying anything, the first backstep that we have taken is we have not participated in government e-marketplace. Whatever the budgets may be, whatever the allocations may be, if you have to take it, you have to participate. That is point number one. Point number two, every sector is being touched upon. So MSME does not have to think that I am working in this sector, am I going to get neglected? Mayur, Anandji, Milanji, resume, even the defense segment, which was never opened for MSMEs, they have opened it for MSMEs. They want new vendors to now supply to defense. Isn't it a very, very positive move? We have to now scale up our standards part so that we can match up to the government standards. If we are not upgrading ourselves, we can't blame the policymakers. I would say, ladies and gentlemen, please participate in government e-marketplace. There is phenomenal opportunity under local procurement.
That's very optimistic. Mayur, I'd come this to you. Can you guide our viewers and tell them one thing that they need to really start doing? And this again from a MSME perspective, one thing that they need to start doing, and one thing that you believe they need to really should stop doing on an immediate basis, which will or can help them come back on track to normalcy or even with a better performance altogether.
Yeah, so Razum, I'll sort of take off from where Anand and Ravi have left off, and it's similar views from my side. I think the MSMEs should participate in the various schemes that have been announced. It's only then that can be made a success and they can make benefit out of the schemes. For example, they should make use of the ECLGS scheme, which is there. I think it's been utilized about 70% already. We have a couple of months more. People should make use of that and avail of the loans which are possible for their working capital requirements, expansion, etc. So that's one. The other bit I would say is, again, similar to what Anand was saying, is invest in digital, in alternate modes of reaching to the customer. Adapt to what the revised customer behavior patterns are. And there's been a lot of emphasis, outlays, etc., to boost digital infrastructure in the economy overall. That should be made use of. So these will be my 2 points for the MSMEs, Razum.
Milan, two things that you'd want the viewers to understand: one to stop and one to start.
One to start is, again, being an entrepreneur, I'll say to the startups, never, never, ever take a shortcut. Never avoid a tax. It will haunt you in the long run. Yeah. So I think pay your taxes, do your compliances. Even if it's a one-person organization, get it validated. Pay your taxes on time. In the long run, the compliances will definitely give you multiple folds in return. So that's my one thing to start is pay your taxes on time. One thing to stop is avoid any shortcuts, and that's from me.
Okay, Anand, your comments, please. You're on mute again.
I couldn't agree more with what Milan said, and I can give you a personal example from the company that I work with, VMart, and I think if you look at how corporate governance plays a role in wealth creation, it is mind-boggling, and it's not just about taxes. It's more about keeping a clean conscience, being transparent, and doing the doing work the right way, and benefits will automatically follow. So it's not just about this budget, but answering your question, around what one should do and what should not do. I think I already talked about what one should do is more around start investing, start being vocal, start getting out in the market, taking advantage of the situation. But one thing I would also want our viewers to stop doing is to stop worrying. I firmly believe, one should never waste an opportunity. Crisis is also an opportunity to grow, and COVID has taught all of us that not to worry. New innovations and disruptions are creating successful stories world over. Our time is now. Let's really make the most of it. So that's my advice.
What's your advice, Ravi, on the MSMEs?
We can only exemplify with the opportunities. We can highlight and exemplify the opportunities that is already coming on the way for Indian MSMEs. Now, just think of it on the lighter side. Let's make this conversation also. Since my HSBC happens to be the first bank which is moving forward after the budgets to reach out to Indian MSMEs, so I see it as a very, very positive sign. Thanks Mayur and thanks the entire team of HSBC that this is what an MSME should see when they are decoding the budgets, that there is an MNC bank also being very forthcoming is a live example. Also, I would say this pandemic has given everybody a level playing ground. We are all at reset. We are all at ground zero. So there's nothing called you cannot succeed and I will still stay behind. The quality will exceed. Yes, the markets will now be more digitalized, quality conscious. The MSME which will focus on its quality, the MSME which will focus on the technology adaptation, will be the one which will advance faster, which will grow faster, which will see a 2x growth or a 3x growth. If we still feel we are not ready for change, that becomes a issue. And my request to all the promoters would be to please read through the various schemes that is available for the MSME, read through the various grants that is available to the MSME, read through the various schemes, the subsidies which is available. This is one thing which is grossly missing in India. Please take the advice of subject matter experts, participate in government e-marketplace, and I see this is the best place to be in.
Very well explained, Ravi. And Mayur, I'd want to share one thing with you. I've received a couple of emails from you in the last 2 days, and your email has a banner that has a HSBC logo, and it says "Beyond the Boundaries of Our Minds." It took my attention, and what was even more inspiring was a short line beneath it that read "India Beyond Boundaries." So slogans like that really instill a lot of confidence, and from an MSME standpoint, seeing banks like HSBC their hand on our palm, it's something that's second to none. So moving on to that, I want to pick one question that's really catching my attention, and it's again about the trust factor that we were discussing. Gomati Kadi Reddy, he is commented and he says that he requests panelists to comment on the Economist's observation that India is getting into a K economy post-pandemic. That is, the rich will get richer and the poor poorer. But wait, here's the beauty. Now, he has a statement himself which says, I am sure they're wrong. You know, he says, I'm sure they're wrong, which means they're trying to trust India. They're trying to be self-reliant. They're really trying to understand that things are taking to a good shape, but then there's some doubt. So I want one of you to really, let's begin with Milan, that you comment and really something say that instills that confidence and strengthens it.
Okay, so very, very simple answer is that, my friend, it's time you become an entrepreneur. And trust me, the one-person company move is thought through, is detailed out, is fleshed out very well by the government. And, that's how we will create jobs for other people. A startup ecosystem where there is a huge budget. Last time when we spoke about the startup ecosystem, we had the Startup Awards, ET Startup Awards, and the government announced 10,000 crores. So I think it's time to look at creating and fostering an environment where you nurture talent, where you take people along, where you create an ecosystem, where you create more jobs for people. And yes, as Anand rightly said, somewhere the word trust, it starts with you. First, you need to make your move. And once you trust the government, it will definitely hold your hand and pull you up, And technology is the way forward. And I think if you are anywhere in any area of work, may it be manufacturing, may it be, any other space, use technology for fostering this culture of growth. And it's a great time to start. That's my input, Razan, to the panel and to Mr. Reddy. Thank you.
Well explained. So we're running short of time. So what we do is we have a lot of questions that we share with all the panelists to answer post the session. And I'd want to quickly move on to closing comments. So Ravi, your closing comments, please.
My closing comments will be close to what question was raised by Gomtiji. Please understand, if you think what you have written that the rich will become richer and the poor will become poorer, while the Europe is under the third lockdown, your good country is on the verge of reviving from the economic slowdown. As per the World Bank report, and please read the latest Asian Development Bank report, we will be into a growth stage by the end of third quarter this year. This cannot happen if the poor is growing poorer. Our GDP will see improvement. Look at the amount of investment coming into India. Do you think that investment will help only the richer? Are the tier 2, tier 3 cities not getting benefited out of it? I just now said in my opening comments, the government is going to create metro for tier 2, tier 3 cities. There are industrial clusters in tier 2, tier 3 cities, which is supporting a large number of MSMEs into smaller cities. When the government announced leather policy, where they said they will reduce the duties in import. Now, do you think leather industry is only based out of metro cities? Now, do you think only the large corporates are dealing into leather, or their ancillaries will not get benefited? So it is just an assumption that it is going, and as you rightly said in your last line, I'm sure it's going to be wrong. It will be wrong, because we are going to emerge as the fastest and the most promising country to come out post-COVID.
Very well said. Mayur, closing comments from you, please.
Yeah. So, Razam, I think the right intent has been displayed by the government with the announcement of the reforms and the proposals. I think swift steps will be required on the implementation front, and I'm hopeful that we will see those swift steps on the implementation side as well. And then, as all of us have been speaking about, it's a long, bright future for India.
Thank you. Anand, closing comments from you, please.
I'll keep it very short. I'll just say that, India is just opening up with this budget, without this budget, but India is actually opening up. And the per capita consumption is bound to grow sharply as the income level starts to grow with more education, better health, and private investments. I think if we can just focus on capital management, invest for the long run, not only for 1 year or 2 years, but for the long run, and use technology as a disruptor and not get disrupted by it, I think we are in for the long haul, and we are all going to be winners. So that's what I just wanted to say.
All right, thank you. So with that, I just summarize what we discussed today, and I'd urge India to embrace the acronym IDEA. Be inclusive, digitally pervasive, focus on ease of doing business, and carry an abundance mindset, which can really help us focus on the positive journey ahead. We are not halfway through yet. There's a long journey ahead, but I believe with a lot of trust in our own self is something that will make the keys altogether open the locks. I'd be back tomorrow again, same time, 11 a.m. onwards, with another episode tomorrow of the Budget with HSBC series 2021. So stay tuned and join us again tomorrow. Thank you, everyone, and Jai Hind.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, my co-panelists.